The gavel struck, its echo rolling like thunder through the chamber, as Michael Crane tightened his grip on the polished table. Michael Crane whispered, "It is finished." Emily Ward pressed trembling hands against her face, her muted coat clinging like armor. Daniel Harper sat hollow-eyed, his chest rising in shallow bursts, as though the walls themselves were closing in. The silence fractured when Michael Crane's phone vibrated, a sharp and urgent hum. He hesitated, then answered with reluctant fingers. A voice hissed through the line, "You crossed the line tonight." His pulse quickened, the dread wrapping tighter as the courtroom exhaled its final breath. Michael Crane returned to his chambers, the city's glow pressing against tall windows, like an unspoken accusation. He poured amber liquid into a glass, the clink of ice sharp in the silence. His reflection in the glassy surface met his gaze, lips whispering words he barely believed. Michael Crane said, "One more case, one more victory, then I will stop." The vow echoed hollow against the walls. The dim light flickered above, casting shadows that writhed like doubt. The verdict clung to the air, a ghost unwilling to leave him in peace. Emily Ward walked the empty city streets, her coat wrapped tight as though shielding her from invisible hands. Streetlights blinked, scattering fractured halos on rain-slick pavement. Emily Ward whispered, "How can truth lose so easily?" The words dissolved into the hum of distant traffic. Each flickering bulb judged her in silence, its light heavy and condemning. The thunder of the gavel returned in memory with every step, striking harder than her heart could bear. She carried silence like chains, dragging her forward, but leaving her spirit behind. Michael Crane paused as a voice drifted from his doorway. Liam Cross leaned with careless defiance, sharp eyes gleaming in the dim corridor. His smirk carried the weight of secrets too large for his youth. Liam Cross said, "You don't know what you've unleashed." Michael Crane's shoulders tensed, his glass halted midway. The words struck like sparks on dry wood, ready to ignite the silence. The air thickened between them, vibrating with tension neither chose to break. In a quiet cafe corner, Sarah Whitfield reached across the table, her hand brushing against Michael Crane's. Her smile was warm, her gaze steady, carrying comfort like a lullaby. Sarah Whitfield said, "You did what had to be done." Michael Crane closed his eyes, letting her words seep into him like honey laced with poison. The world hushed, the hum of voices fading into nothing. Outside, rain streaked across the glass, each drop reminding him that no act is washed clean forever. Daniel Harper sat in the holding room, his wrists chained to the cold table, eyes fixed on the cracked wall as though escape might be written there. Michael Crane entered with a confident stride, though his eyes betrayed the weight of decisions made in shadow. Daniel Harper whispered, "I trusted you, Michael." Michael Crane placed a hand on the table, steady but not warm, and said, "Justice will come, no matter the cost." Emily Ward stood in the doorway, her arms folded, suspicion tightening her jaw. The room felt smaller than air allowed, and every word carried the weight of lives bent under verdicts. Michael Crane walked the courthouse steps at dawn, the city still draped in fog. Reporters clustered like crows, their questions slicing through the silence. Michael Crane raised his hand and declared, "I will fight for justice until truth prevails." The flash of cameras burned his face into the morning haze. Emily Ward lingered at the edge, arms crossed, watching him with doubt carved into her eyes. Liam Cross appeared briefly in the background, restless, scanning the crowd, his gaze too sharp for a boy. The courthouse loomed behind them, a stone monument to promises already fractured. Emily Ward sat across from Daniel Harper in the sterile visiting room, the glass between them, a wall no words could pierce. Daniel Harper pressed his palm against the barrier, his voice breaking as he said, "Tell me this fight means something." Emily Ward mirrored his hand, her breath fogging the glass, whispering, "It has to." The hum of fluorescent lights echoed above them, unrelenting. Michael Crane entered silently, watching them from a distance, his face unreadable. In that moment, truth was not a matter of evidence but of faith, fragile and trembling between them. In a quiet diner on the edge of town, Sarah Whitfield leaned close to Michael Crane, her voice steady and warm. Sarah Whitfield said, "You carry the weight of too many battles." Michael Crane stirred his untouched coffee, eyes focused on the dark swirl. "I carry what must be carried," Michael Crane replied. Sarah Whitfield's touch lingered on his sleeve, a gesture both comforting and binding. Outside, neon signs flickered against rain-streaked windows, their light painting fractured colors across the table. To others, it looked like solace. To Michael Crane, it felt like a leash. Late that night, Michael Crane opened a worn box in his chambers. Inside it, a photograph of a smiling boy with sharp eyes. Liam Cross stepped forward from the shadows, voice low. Liam Cross said, "You never told them who I really am." Michael Crane closed the lid slowly, the weight of secrets pressing harder than the verdicts he once chased. Emily Ward appeared in the doorway, frozen at the edge of revelation. The silence hummed, charged with betrayal waiting to shatter bonds. Nothing felt anchored anymore, not even truth. Michael Crane studied the evidence table, files stacked like broken promises. A crucial photograph, once at the center, was gone. Emily Ward leaned over his shoulder, her voice sharp with fear. Emily Ward said, "They are erasing the truth before our eyes." Daniel Harper sat nearby, his face pale, hands clenched into fists, whispering, "Every piece they take buries me deeper." Michael Crane closed his eyes, exhaling, then muttered, "We fight with what remains." The air inside the chamber thickened, each breath drawn heavy with suspicion, as though unseen hands rewrote justice while they stood helpless. In the courtroom, Michael Crane pushed boundaries, pacing before the judge with fiery words. His voice cut through objections, louder than rules allowed. Emily Ward's gaze followed him, equal parts awe and dread. The judge struck the gavel, warning, but Michael Crane pressed forward, his tone unwavering. Michael Crane declared, "If truth cannot be found in your order, I will drag it into the light myself." The gallery stirred uneasily, whispers crawling across benches like sparks. Emily Ward whispered under her breath, "You are slipping further than you know." Liam Cross appeared in the archives, flashlight slicing through the dark. He rifled through dusty folders, each page a whisper of hidden crimes. Liam Cross muttered, "They buried it here. They always bury it here." His hands trembled with both fear and urgency. In the shadows, a faint figure moved, the sound of shifting papers echoing louder than footsteps. Liam Cross froze, listening, then pressed a hand against his sketchbook tucked into his jacket. "If they take this too, the truth will vanish forever," Liam Cross whispered to himself, his voice shaking. Trust shattered in the safe house where Michael Crane gathered his allies. Emily Ward stood apart, arms crossed, watching Sarah Whitfield with wary eyes. Sarah Whitfield smiled warmly, yet her gaze carried something hidden, a price unspoken. Daniel Harper slammed his hand on the table, shouting, "We are losing ground because someone is feeding them everything." Silence stretched long. Michael Crane looked between them, suspicion cracking his loyalty. Sarah Whitfield leaned forward, her voice smooth, "We all want the same thing." Yet the room's heavy air betrayed the fracture splitting them apart. Late in the night, Michael Crane faced the looming presence of Victor Hale, the Velvet Blade. Victor Hale stood motionless in his immaculate office, the city skyline burning in glass behind him. Michael Crane's jaw clenched as he said, "You are pulling every string, aren't you?" Victor Hale paused before speaking, his calm voice steady, "Control is not taken, Michael, it is given." Emily Ward, hidden in the shadows, felt her chest tighten as she realized how deep the betrayal went. The room became an arena of silent war, with truth bound in chains no evidence could sever. In the dim hallway of the courthouse, Michael Crane held the testimony file with shaking hands, pages torn from the heart of the case. The ink revealed a hidden past of a key witness, once thought incorruptible. Emily Ward read over his shoulder, her voice cracking as she whispered, "They lied under oath." Daniel Harper, seated on a bench nearby, lifted his head in disbelief, eyes wide with fragile hope. Michael Crane muttered, "This changes everything." Yet even as the words escaped, shadows stretched longer across the walls, as if the truth was preparing its own trial. Inside the judge's chamber, Michael Crane slammed the file onto the desk, his voice raw with urgency. Michael Crane said, "This testimony was manufactured." The judge, stern and unmoved, raised an eyebrow, unwilling to yield. Emily Ward stepped forward, desperation in her tone. "Lives depend on this truth being heard." Silence crackled like static in the air. Michael Crane's voice broke into steel as he added, "If you bury this, you bury justice itself." Yet the judge remained silent, the clock ticking on the wall louder than any verdict, echoing like a countdown to collapse. Emily Ward followed her instinct, digging deeper into the witness records. In a forgotten archive, she found the betrayal written in signatures and erased dates. Emily Ward whispered, "It was someone inside all along." The realization cut sharper than any verdict. Michael Crane entered, his face pale, his loyalty unraveling. Emily Ward turned to him, her voice low but fierce. "You knew this was possible, and you still trusted them." Michael Crane stared at the floor, his silence louder than confession. Between them, trust collapsed, leaving only fragments sharp enough to wound. Sarah Whitfield sat at the end of the table in the safe house, her hands folded calmly, a soft smile gracing her lips. Michael Crane paced, anger radiating in each step. Michael Crane said, "You have been holding back." Sarah Whitfield's eyes met his, steady and unreadable. Emily Ward leaned forward, her voice trembling. "You promised us truth." Sarah Whitfield tilted her head slightly and replied, "And I gave you comfort, which is far more dangerous." The words sliced cleanly, leaving the room in silence. Daniel Harper whispered, "Then we were never free." In the abandoned courtroom, Liam Cross revealed the sketchbook he carried like a second skin. He spread the pages on the bench, drawings of people connected by threads of betrayal. Michael Crane leaned closer, eyes widening at faces he recognized. Liam Cross said, "Every secret ties back to you, Michael." Emily Ward gasped, covering her mouth, realization dawning too late. Michael Crane reached for the book, but Liam Cross pulled it back, his glare burning with fire beyond his years. The walls seemed to close in, the past and present entwining into a noose. The trial roared to life, the gallery packed with restless faces, as Michael Crane stormed the center of the courtroom. His voice rang louder than the gavel, his words striking with the force of thunder. Michael Crane shouted, "This is not justice, this is theater." Daniel Harper leaned forward, hope burning through his fear as the chains at his wrists rattled. Emily Ward sat behind him, her hands clasped tight, her eyes begging the truth to finally surface. Sarah Whitfield's calm gaze from across the room pierced the chaos, her faint smile unreadable. The courtroom trembled like a stage about to collapse. The judge struck the gavel demanding order, but Michael Crane's fire refused to dim. Michael Crane pointed to the shredded testimony, shouting, "The truth has been strangled in these walls." The judge's eyes narrowed, voice cutting sharp, "You are out of line." Emily Ward rose, her voice breaking through the clamor. "He is right, you cannot silence this." The gallery gasped, whispers racing like wildfire. Daniel Harper's shoulders straightened, the weight of injustice lifting slightly. Yet the judge's silence afterward carried more threat than words, his hand hovering above the gavel like a blade, not yet fallen. The air cracked when David Turner, the steady anchor, stepped forward from the shadows of the courtroom aisle. His steady voice shattered illusions as he said, "I gave them everything they needed." Emily Ward froze, betrayal slicing through her chest. Michael Crane's face hardened, fury and disbelief colliding. Daniel Harper whispered, "You were the one." Sarah Whitfield leaned back, her soft smile deepening, as though betrayal had always been the script. David Turner's eyes were calm, but his words thundered, "For the greater good, I traded what you could never protect." Silence screamed louder than shouts. Michael Crane advanced toward David Turner, each step cracking the silence, his voice a dagger. Michael Crane said, "You betrayed everything we fought for." David Turner stood firm, eyes steady, his jaw set like stone. Emily Ward rushed between them, her arms outstretched, shouting, "Enough! This war is eating us alive." Daniel Harper's chains rattled as he rose halfway, torn between rage and despair. Sarah Whitfield's calm voice floated across the room, "The truth is never free, only borrowed." The tension broke like glass under pressure, every heart beating against the walls of loyalty and ruin. The doors at the back creaked open, and Victor Hale, the Velvet Blade, entered with flawless calm. His presence drained the noise from the room, silence falling like a curtain. Michael Crane turned, eyes blazing, and shouted, "You orchestrated this from the start." Victor Hale smiled faintly, replying, "I merely reminded you of who you are." Emily Ward gasped, her chest tightening as the weight of betrayal reached its peak. Daniel Harper's hope faltered, his eyes sinking back into despair. Victor Hale's gaze swept the room, and with a single raised brow, control bent to his will. The final ruling echoed in the courtroom, words falling heavier than stone. Michael Crane stood still, his fists clenched at his sides. The verdict did not clear Daniel Harper, but neither did it fully condemn him. It was a verdict twisted, a compromise that poisoned every soul in the room. Emily Ward whispered, "This is not justice, it is surrender." Daniel Harper lowered his head, eyes brimming with defeat. Sarah Whitfield's calm smile flickered, satisfaction hidden beneath her serenity. Michael Crane muttered, "We fought, and still we lost." The silence afterward was suffocating, louder than any outcry. Outside the courthouse, rain fell hard against the steps, washing the stone but not the guilt. Daniel Harper was led away in chains, his eyes hollow but resigned. Michael Crane stood under the awning, his suit drenched at the shoulders, watching helplessly. Emily Ward rushed forward, her voice cracking. He deserved freedom, not this half-life. The officers pulled Daniel Harper away as he whispered, "I never believed in justice, but I believed in you." Michael Crane closed his eyes, his breath sharp, knowing he carried the weight of another man's broken fate. Michael Crane returned to his chambers, the room darker than memory allowed. Papers lay scattered, the testimony file shredded like his integrity. Sarah Whitfield entered quietly, her voice low and soft. Sarah Whitfield said, "You carried this further than anyone else could." Michael Crane glared, answering, "And yet I delivered nothing but ruins." Sarah Whitfield touched the back of his chair, a gesture both tender and chilling. Her smile held secrets, a reminder that comfort often comes with hidden debts. Michael Crane lowered his head, shadows devouring the last of his conviction. Emily Ward stood alone on the courthouse steps after the rain, her coat clinging to her frame. She held a folder of files close to her chest, the last fragments of a case now poisoned. Emily Ward whispered, "We are left with ashes." Liam Cross emerged from the shadows, restless, his sharp eyes fixed on her. Liam Cross muttered, "Ashes can still burn." Emily Ward looked at him, torn between disbelief and fragile hope. The night pressed in, the street lamps casting halos around falling raindrops, as if reminding them that endings were rarely clean. In the silent chambers, Victor Hale stood by the window, the city lights gleaming behind him. Michael Crane entered, his face pale with defeat. Michael Crane said, "You orchestrated justice into ruin." Victor Hale turned, his eyes calm, his voice smooth as steel. "I only gave shape to what you already were." Emily Ward appeared in the doorway, her voice low. "You cannot control us forever." Victor Hale smiled faintly, his reflection merging with the skyline, an image of power that refused to break. Michael Crane's silence sealed the truth. Justice had been twisted beyond recognition. In his quiet chamber, Michael Crane opened a worn envelope sealed for years. His hands shook as he slid out the letter, the ink faded but sharp enough to wound. Emily Ward stood near the window, her gaze fixed on the city beyond, whispering, "Some truths are too heavy to carry." Michael Crane said, "This one carried me into ruin." He pressed the letter back into its envelope, refusing to finish reading it. The silence filled the room, as if even words feared the weight of what remained unspoken. The courtroom lay empty, rows of benches abandoned like a battlefield after defeat. Michael Crane walked slowly across the floor, his footsteps echoing louder than any verdict. Emily Ward trailed behind, a coat brushing the polished wood. Michael Crane whispered, "Every victory costs more than loss." Emily Ward replied softly, "But loss leaves scars that never fade." Their voices echoed into the hollow chamber, a requiem for justice that had slipped away. The air itself seemed haunted by words that could no longer change fate. In the silent office, Victor Hale stood before the judge's bench, his hands clasped behind his back. His gaze lingered on the scales of justice carved in wood, a faint smile curling his lips. Michael Crane entered, his voice sharp, "You turned justice into your weapon." Victor Hale replied calmly, "I turned it into what it always was." Emily Ward listened unseen in the gallery, her breath shallow, knowing the man before them had shaped their ruin. The carved scales loomed above, mocking balance that never truly existed. A melody drifted through the air, faint and fragile. Liam Cross sat alone in the archive, his sketchbook open across his lap. His pen traced absent lines, shaping faces already lost. Liam Cross whispered, "They will never believe me, but the walls remember." Emily Ward appeared at the doorway, her eyes damp, her voice a tremor. "The truth does not die. It hides until someone dares to see it." Liam Cross looked up, his sharp eyes weary, nodding slowly. The room hummed with ghosts of secrets still buried. Night blanketed the city as Michael Crane stood on the courthouse steps, his face lit by the faint glow of street lamps. Emily Ward joined him, her coat pulled tight against the wind. Daniel Harper's voice echoed in memory, "I believed in you." Michael Crane whispered, "And that belief destroyed us all." Victor Hale's figure lingered in the distance, a shadow fading into the city lights. Emily Ward asked softly, "What remains of justice now?" Michael Crane's silence was the only answer, leaving the question to echo into eternity.